Microphones are on. Microphones are on. We're going to start in 1 minute. If everybody would check your cell phones, please. Including me. Good afternoon, everybody. It is Friday, June 20th, 2025. This is Commissioners of the City of Rehoboth Beach regular meeting. We're live at City Hall, Commissioners Room, second floor. I'd like to call this meeting to order at exactly 2 o'clock p.m. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Start off with roll call. Commissioner Mark Saunders, absent. Commissioner Suzanne Good, absent. Commissioner Ed Chernowski, absent. Commissioner Patrick Gossett. Here. Commissioner Bunky Markert. Here. Commissioner Craig Thier. Here. And Mayor Stan Mills is here. While we don't have the full complement of mayor and commissioners, we do have a quorum so that we can formally conduct business today. We're going to move right along and thank everybody that's here in person. As you know, input is welcome. See the bottom of the agenda where it articulates the guidelines on the opportunities for feedback, both on topic and off topic. I want to also thank everybody that's watching virtually and remind everybody that support documents, those are documents that support our individual agenda items when they're available sufficient time in front of the meeting, are also embedded in the agenda. If you go to the city's website, go to the meeting and agendas, it'll take you into the portal, search for meeting date, and you'll be able to find all kinds of information there. With that, move on to identifying staff that's here today. We have Marco Avila is running the camera and machines over there. Wave your hand there. City Secretary Ann Womack is utilizing Mark's chair over there. City Manager Taylor Tedder. City Solicitor Lisa Boren-Ogden is here. Henry Matlos, Public Works Director, Assistant City Manager Evan Miller, and Keith Chief Banks, and various interns. Aaron and Jillian and Kevin. Raymond, I'm sorry. This is a test. It's a weekly test for me, darn it. And Aaron's communications, correct. With that, we're going to move on. There is no correspondence that I've received for this agenda. We'll move on to approval of minutes. I have the following, this may not reflect what's in the agenda, but I have the following minutes ready for approval. Executive session held on May 16th, 2025 and June 9th, 2025. Regular meeting held on May 16th, 2025. Special meetings held on May 16th, 2025 and June 9th, 2025. Special budget workshop meetings held on January 17th, February 10th, and February 21, all 2025. And workshop meetings held on December 9th, 2024, and January 6th, 2025, and February 10th, 2025. That is how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 sets of minutes. Are there any corrections needed to any of those sets of minutes? If not, I'll take a motion and a second to approve the 11 sets of minutes in front of us.
Mayor, so moved.
I'll take a second.
I started to look to the left of me, but that's not going to work.
Yeah.
We have a motion by Commissioner Patrick Gossett and a second by Bunky Marker to approve the 11 sets of minutes in front of us. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, and the motion is carried unanimously by the commissioners in attendance. Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to the city manager's report. Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, commissioners, and members of the public. Our annual Independence Day fireworks will take place on Saturday, July 5th. Festivities begin around 8 p.m. at the bandstand with a performance by the Funsters. Fireworks will launch from Brooklyn Avenue at 9:30 and will be visible along the beach and boardwalk. Several parking restrictions will be in place throughout the day, and road closures will be implemented that evening. All restrictions and closures are listed on our website, but I'll note a few of the closures here. The bandstand area will be closed to vehicular traffic from 6 p.m. to midnight. Vehicles will not be able to cross the Rehoboth Avenue Circle beginning at 7:30 p.m. Rehoboth Avenue eastbound and Church Street from State Route 1 will be closed to vehicular traffic beginning at 8 p.m. And the darts pickup location during the fireworks, following the fireworks, will be at the Henlopen Hotel. Moving on to the canal dock, Wallace Montgomery will be on site next week to perform their second survey of the canal dock. After that survey is analyzed, depending on the results, they and the soils engineer Stable Ground in situ will make a determination if they are willing to sign off on reopening the dock for the rest of the summer. More details and information will be presented to commissioners most likely in the July regular meeting. Moving to the Tidewater Interconnect, Beacon Engineering and the city are still working to install the interconnect with Tidewater, coordinating with suppliers and contractors, and we're hopeful to have it operational by July 4th weekend. We've had some delays, but there's not much room for contingency, but I've also discussed with Bill Zolper in Dewey Beach, and asked that he also shares the information to Dewey Beach residents to conserve water. So a postcard will be mailed to all water customers, both in and out of town, regarding conservation. So leading with that, to conserve water and help flatten demand for water at peak times, the city of Rehoboth Beach is asking water customers to voluntarily irrigate on the following schedule. Homes and businesses with even-numbered addresses water on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and those with odd-number addresses irrigate on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And then I just want to touch on parking revenue really quick for May and so far this month. So parking revenue, which includes coin, credit card, and Park Mobile for May 15th through 31st, was pretty much flat compared to last year. We had about 2,500 more transactions and $5,700 more in revenue. Parking revenue for June 1st through 15th was less than compared to last year, and it's presumably because of the weather that we've been having. In 2024, during the June 1 to June 15 period, we brought in $862,000. In 2025, we brought in $712,000, so down about $149,000. But if the weather picks back up, we're confident that that will be made up in the parking season. Permit sales are also slightly down in June as well. Street aid, this month's street aid expenditure was $11,666.20, and that was paid to Delmarva Power. I'm here for any questions you may have.
Any questions?
I just said one
Commissioner
comment.
Marker?
I wasn't here this past week, and it sounded like we had a good deal of precipitation, did we not? I'm wondering if having Wallace Montgomery come in to look at the dock again, this would be a good, after what we had last week would be, I think if anything was going to move, it would probably have moved as a result of the precipitation. So I'm just thinking it's probably timing is good. Okay, all right, that's just an observation. Okay. So.
All right, thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to the city solicitor's report. Anything, Lisa?
Yes, sir. As you all are aware, Rehoboth, along with other public water systems, joined a class action. As you all are aware, Rehoboth, along with other public water systems, joined a class action lawsuit alleging that 3M and several other companies knowingly manufactured and/or sold products containing PFAS despite being aware of their detrimental impact on the environment. Last week, we received the first of several checks, this one for $336,486.03. It is expected that we will receive one more in 2025 and several others in 2026 and 2027. These funds are available to public water systems that have already identified PFAS in their water, for systems to cover the cost of testing and for remediation. Funds are also available for public water systems in meeting proposed federal standards. I should have more in the next several months as we learn more about how much money we'll be receiving.
Thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Thayer?
The money that we received, is that restricted? Does it have to be used for?
The money is restricted in the sense that it has to be used in the manner I just described.
Okay, which is for?
Testing, for remediation, to cover the costs of what needs to be done, and also for meeting proposed federal standards.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, departmental reports, as you can see, the Alderman Court report, Building and Licensing Department and Code Enforcement report, Communications Department report, and Police Department reports are all embedded in the agenda. With that, we have a department briefing today from Public Works Director Henry Matlos in regards to the Wastewater Department. Henry?
Thanks, Mayor. Hey, Marco, could you switch it over to me? There we go. Good afternoon. So today, just wanted to give a quick briefing about the belt filter press. There we go. Which there's a picture of it up on the screens. And it's part of the Phase 3B of the wastewater treatment plant upgrades. So belt filter press is operational now, running in manual. Should be fully operational in automatic with the bugs worked out within a couple weeks. We've discussed this before, but just to summarize, and many of you have, actually I think all of you have taken tours of the plant up here. It takes the sludge, the product that doesn't go back to the plant for further treatment, and turns it into what's called cake, which is about 18% solids. So the liquids that's pressed out from the belt filter press goes back to the plant for retreatment. And this was actually a 30-yard dumpster filled with, which was the first one from the plant about 10 days or so ago of cake. So before the belt filter press, we'd have to haul sludge to either inland bays or south coastal treatment in 5,500-gallon tankers. And the sludge is about 2% solids, and like I mentioned, the cake is about 18% solids. So with the current agreement that we have, the county has the permit. They'll be coming to our treatment plant to pick up the cake for disposal in the landfill. So we don't have a permit from DENREC to haul the cake, but Wastewater Department Head Paul Hignut, he is going to apply for one. And before coming to the city, Paul used to run the belt filter press at South Coastal, so it's great that we have his expertise. So when we get that permit, that would allow us, if needed, to be able to haul the cake ourselves. You all approved in FY26 a new hook hoist trailer truck for the streets departments when we received that last week. So we were going to put the old one out for auction, but instead we're going to keep it for a while and for potential use for the wastewater department if needed for a period of time. Just kind of see how things go. The county, Sussex County, though, Hans and Mike Harmer. They're great partners, but we don't want to rely on anyone, on them or any entity for that matter. So the cost of the press, the associated piping, motors, pumps, all the materials was about $1.5 million, plus the cost of the building, and that does not include the labor, that $1.5 million. So last week, we had a pre-bid meeting for Phase 4, the wastewater plant upgrades, and GHD and I discussed it, and we decided to make that meeting mandatory. And we had several in attendee last week, and GHD and I will be presenting to you all for approval in the August regular meeting the bid results. And at that time also, Phase 3B should be pretty much wrapped up, and we'll also probably give a final update on Phase 3B. Any questions?
So Henry, with this in operation, that means we don't have to haul it to that farm anymore, is that correct?
Correct. And
So let me ask you, so what does that mean as far as the lease on that farm? Can we get rid of that? Can we get rid of the injector? Can we get rid of the tanker trucks?
we got rid of we stopped the lease in April of this year. So, Hans had called me about it, and they were actually going to go into negotiations with potentially taking that over, and I think they have. As far as the tanker trucks, we'd rather not get rid of those just yet. There's no need just to sell them. If we were to ever have a large leak, somewhere out in town, and say at one of the pump stations, it's nice to have something, a large tanker that can hold 5,500 gallons, because like our vac truck only holds about 700 gallons. And as far as the injector, the plan is to put that out for auction in October.
Right. Thank you. Any questions of Henry? Commissioner Thayer?
Yeah, a couple of questions. So with the cake, are we going to use, are we still going to rely, it wasn't quite clear, are we just going to take it over ourselves, or are we still going to rely on the county to do it?
We're going to wait and see.
Okay.
Right now, we're gonna have the county. They have the permit, but we want to have that ability. Again, we don't want to. It's kind of like with the sludge. When we ran into problems, when we had a truck, we'd be able to call on the county, and they came and took the sludge for us. Obviously, they charged us for it, and the price on hauling the cake is pretty reasonable. So we'll kind of evaluate things as they go on.
And you may have mentioned this, you have the truck or trucks that you need to haul the cake?
Yes, we do.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
great, thank you. And last, so 3B is going to be done by August, you're thinking?
Largely.
Okay.
Punch list mainly. This is the last major part of it. So, punch list, 98% done. So we figured with Stephen Clark from GHD, who's here a couple months ago, again, he and I will give a presentation about 3B and 4.
Okay. And 4 with so you had a pre-bid meeting, you had more than one bidder show up?
We did.
Okay. How many showed up?
We had 7 total.
Okay.
A couple of them could be subs,
Okay.
Subcontractors. So, but we had a couple good prospects.
Okay. And who is the contract for 3B?
Ronca.
Okay.
They're out of Pennsylvania.
All right. Are they bidding on
Yes,
4?
they are.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Commissioner Gossett?
Thank you.
and Commissioner
Thanks for the
Markler.
presentation. Very, very informative. On the county permit, applying for the county permit, or the county permit has the transfer, do you have any guesstimation on the expected length of time between application and receiving the permit?
I don't think this would be too long.
About a
Hate
year?
hate to sound vague, but I don't think it's going to be many, many months. I think it'll be shorter.
All right. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Marker?
What's the status of PFAS with regard to this? Does this have to be tested is there testing done to determine?
There is testing on that, and there's nothing as far as regulations, anywhere
Okay,
near the pike. Again, with the water, it was supposed to be 2029,
right.
and now it's 2031. So the expectation is this would be long
Right.
behind.
I hate to say this, but it's like, it's not our problem now, right? I think it is obviously it's a problem, in terms of living on the planet, but the fact that it's not something that we have to sort of deal with or can conceivably deal with in the future, or would the county have some kind of standards by which that they can't, at some point can't receive this because it's got whatever it's got in it or anything that kind of stuff? I'm just trying to get a handle on
No.
exposure.
No. Again, I really don't anticipate anything for many years on the wastewater,
Right.
the regulation of the wastewater PFAS, especially based on what we've seen also. And as, when the county gave the presentation about the ocean outfalls, brought up there that whatever regulations come in, are required when at their new Wolf Neck plant, that they would build them appropriately at the time. But there is nothing, and there's no plans for the PFAS remediation during that.
Okay, I just wanted to ask. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Henry.
Yeah, thank you.
With that, we'll move on. The board and commission reports, we did receive just today a planning commission report from Chair Mike Bryan. Too late to embed in the agenda. We'll embed that, so look for that come Monday or Tuesday in the agenda. Committee reports, there are no written committee reports. I will share with you that the Boardwalk and Beach Committee met today. We took up the topic of historical designation. We will have a report for you at one of our next upcoming meetings. And after that, the next bit of business for the Boardwalk and Beach Committee will be to sunset. So they'll be gone.
Mayor,
Expect
if I
that
could,
to happen
please.
within the next month.
Sorry.
Commissioner Thayer?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. What's your thought on the timing of the establishment of the two new committees that we approved a couple of meetings ago?
I expect to meet with the two chairs, prospective chairs, this next week and give them some guidance on how to move forward. If you recall, we are sunsetting all 5 advisory committees and creating 2. One committee will be tentatively called the Environment Committee. It'll be comprised of the old Environment Committee and the Trees and Green Infrastructure. Commissioner Thayer has reached out and agreed to chair that one. The second one is to sunset the Animal Issues, Street and Transportation, and Beach and Boardwalk Committee, and merge them all into a single Public Safety Committee, and that'll be tentatively chaired by Mark Saunders. And so I'll be getting together with you for what the next steps are.
Great, thank you for that.
Yes, sir, thank you. With that, Commissioner Gossett.
Just want to comment on the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission report and gave thanks to Chairman Bryan and the committee. It's a very succinct and full report, and I'm glad to see them coming back to us. Gives us a close observation of what's going on.
Continue to do them because they've missed a few, yes.
Well, it is a well-written and detailed report, and I'm glad to see them.
They've got a very busy schedule. In fact, they've got 2 meetings for this month. So, yeah, I'll pass that on to them. Thank you, Patrick. With that, I wanted to share that our community partner reports, we did receive written reports from the Chamber of Commerce, Rehoboth Beach Main Street, and the Public Library, and they are embedded in the agenda. With that, we'll move on to the first item of old business, which is to consider correcting appointment termination dates for the Planning Commission members John Dewey, Nan Hunter, Mike Strange to September 2027. My goof, I made the appointments and we voted them in with a ending appointment date of September 2026. I shorted them 1 year, and so this is to make that correction. If I could get a motion to make that correction.
Mayor, so moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Patrick Gossen, a second by Commissioner Bunky Marker to correct the appointment termination dates for Planning Commission members as noted to September 2027. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The noes. And so they have extended their terms by 1 more year. Next item of old business, set the city's real estate tax rate for the tax year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026. If you recall, are we gonna discuss this? Or we have I have the agenda item report there. If you recall, we talked about this last time, and the question was, do we retain the tax rate as is that our this year's fiscal budget was based on, or do we make any changes? Do you have anything you want to say, or?
Not right now.
I think it's all pretty self-explanatory. If you recall, the real estate rate set last year is 7 3/4 cents per hundred of assessed value, which added how much dollars to a typical bill? Like $150 average.
Between 100 and 150.
150. So I would entertain a motion. I'd suggest the motion be to maintain the rate as it has already been set. And if that's voted down, then we'll certainly entertain a motion the other way.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to set the real estate tax rate at .0775 per $100 of assessed value for the tax year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Patrick Gossen, a second by Commissioner Bunky Marker to set the tax rate at, as it is now, currently 7 3/4 cents per hundred of assessed values for, and it's supported by the approved FY26 budget. Is there any discussion?
Are we going to talk at all about that?
If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Gossett,
Aye.
Commissioner Marker,
Aye.
Commissioner Thier,
No. Again, for the 2 reasons that I outlined at the workshop meeting. One is when the taxes were raised a year ago, they were raised based on inaccurate information that the mayor and commissioners were provided, as well as the mayor and commissioners were not provided all of the potential options to increase revenues while not raising taxes. The second reason that I had mentioned last week was that, again, this is related to our fund balance policy. We have a fund balance policy for the general operating fund, which we want to have a minimum fund balance. And we say fund balance, that's essentially our cash on hand. Our cash on hand sits in treasury bills. We want to have a minimum fund balance of $21.6 million. At the end of FY24, based on our audit report, that is $23.8 million. We're projecting at the end of the FY25 fiscal year, once we get the audit report, that fund balance is going to increase by about another $4.5 million. So our total unassigned fund balance, which is, we're over by 2.2 million. This will take us to 6.8. We'll have a total cash on hand of about $28.5 million. So again, we've got this fund balance report. It was meant to be our guardrails. I think it's important that, going forward, if we don't think the unassigned minimum is high enough, then let's have that discussion. Otherwise, we need to be getting back down to that unassigned minimum of 21.6 million. The last thing is really kind of comment here, which is that I'm hearing things in the community that the city is about to go broke with what is projected to be about $28.5 million in cash in the bank, which is equivalent to about 1 year's worth of operating expenses. That's certainly not the case. We could get into a conversation about, you know, inaccuracies of financial information, and maybe that points to some internal control issues. But the audit report, which does not identify any, you know, any problems with it, I think we can trust that when they say we have 23 million in the bank, we got 23 million in the bank. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And the chair votes aye for the motion also to maintain the rate at 7 3/4 cents per 100. You know, it's one of our most stable revenue sources. And I think, I'm not sure you said as much this time, Commissioner Gossett, but last time you articulated, so I want to tack on to what you said last time.
Just as a reminder that property tax is our only revenue source not based on usage. Parking, rental tax, transfer tax, license and permits, hotel tax, fines, and sale of property and other taxes are all based on usage. So it is definitely an inconsistent revenue source for us. And as we heard today in the city manager's report, that parking revenue for the past period was flat and down a little bit this year. It's all weather-based. That may also affect hotel occupancy, which in fact will relate to our hotel tax collected and rental tax on properties within the city. So I certainly hear what Commissioner Thier is saying, and I understand the concern, but I also say that looking at our national economic picture, usage and vacations may not be as strong as they have been in the past. So again, the property tax is our only source of revenue that is not based on usage. So I think it important to maintain the property tax at this time. We've only increased the tax approximately every 5 years.
I'm going to cut you off just,
Sure.
if you don't mind, because this isn't, we've had that discussion. So anyhow, the vote is approved 3-1. Our next bit of business is new business, submission of nominating petitions for commissioners' approval as to qualification of candidates for the annual municipal election scheduled for August 9th, 2025. First thing I want to remind everybody is the charter has prescriptions for this process, a nomination of elective to office. In part, it says the mode of nomination of candidates for elective offices in the city of Rehoboth Beach shall be by petition, signed by not less than 10 nor more than 25 qualified electors of the city, and filed with the Secretary of the Commissioners of Rehoboth Beach on or before 4:30 p.m. on the first Monday in June of each year preceding the annual election. It has further qualifications, and that an affidavit of the circulator must be attached. It also makes mention that each of the 7 commissioners, I'm going to paraphrase here, have at least attained the age of 21. It also mentions that not less than 3 of the commissioners shall be designated resident commissioners, and that the other 3 commissioners must have either the qualifications of a resident commissioner or be a freeholder of real estate located within the city. Again, that is in the charter, section C, along with some other criteria. But before we go on and take a look at the qualifications for each, I would like City Solicitor Lisa to read a statement or opine on a certain topic.
Thank you, Mayor. I have received multiple inquiries regarding whether a husband and wife may legally serve simultaneously on the Board of Commissioners. Jeffrey Good is a candidate for certification today. His wife, Suzanne Good, is a commissioner presently. Upon review, I find no explicit legal prohibition that would prevent such a circumstance. I want to be clear. There is no explicit legal prohibition that would prevent both spouses serving simultaneously as commissioners. However, while there is no legal barrier, it's important to acknowledge that such a situation would present the potential for conflicts of interest to arise. Ultimately, the decision rests with the electorate. For clarity, this analysis is offered solely as a legal observation and has no bearing on certification of the candidate in question. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much, Lisa. With that, I'm going to move next on to Taylor. He's going to read the bios individually and alphabetically, and then we'll start the vote process, and we'll vote one at a time after each candidate is introduced.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'll start with Christopher D. Galanti, a non-resident property owner of the city of Rehoboth Beach, filed a nominating position for the office of Commissioner on Tuesday, May 27th, 2025 at approximately 10:10 a.m. Mr. Galanti provided a Washington, D.C. driver's license proving that he has attained the age of 21. City's tax records show that Mr. Galanti is a freeholder of property within the city of Rehoboth Beach. The nominating petition filed has 25 signatures. 25 of the 25 signatures were verified to be registered voters of the city of Rehoboth Beach. The city finds that Mr. Galanti is a qualified candidate.
Thank you. Do I have a motion that the candidate, Christopher D. Galanti, be certified?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Patrick Gossen, a second by Commissioner Bunky Markert, that Christopher D. Galanti be certified as a candidate for the upcoming municipal election. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? And he is certified, or there you go. We'll go to the next, again in alphabetical order.
Thank you, Mayor. The second is Jeffrey H. Good, a resident property owner of the city of Rehoboth Beach, filed a nominating petition for the office of Commissioner on Monday, April 14th, 2025 at approximately 9:05 a.m. Mr. Good provided a Delaware driver's license proving he has attained the age of 21. The city's tax records show that Mr. Good is a freeholder of property within the city of Rehoboth Beach. The nominating petition filed has 20 signatures. 19 of the 20 signatures were verified to be registered voters of the city of Rehoboth Beach, and staff finds that Mr. Good is a qualified candidate.
Do I have a motion to certify Jeffrey H. Good as a candidate?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Patrick Gossett and a second by Commissioner Bunky Markert to certify Jeffrey H. Good as a candidate for the upcoming municipal election. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And so Jeffrey H. Good is certified as a candidate in the upcoming election. Third candidate, please.
Susan H. Stewart, a resident property owner of the city of Rehoboth Beach, filed a nominating petition for the office of Commissioner on Monday, May 5th, 2025 at approximately 11:04 a.m. Ms. Stewart provided a Delaware driver's license proving that she has attained the age of 21. The city's records show that Ms. Stewart is a freeholder of property within the city of Rehoboth Beach. The nominating petition filed has 18 signatures. 18 of the 18 signatures were verified to be registered voters of the city of Rehoboth Beach, and staff finds that Ms. Stewart is a qualified candidate.
Can I get a motion to certify Susan H. Stewart as a candidate?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Patrick Gossett and a second by Commissioner Bunky Markert to certify Susan H. Stewart as a candidate for the upcoming municipal election. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? And Susan H. Stewart is certified as a candidate in the upcoming election. Thank you very much. With that, we're going to move on to the next item of business, which is presentation by Nicholas Walls of
Mayor,
Wallace.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, Mayor, if
Yeah,
I
you
may.
had
Just
had a
one
question.
follow-up, if I may. And
This is in reference to the last.
to the last, yes, to the nominating petitions. We've had a position as described by City Solicitor that we have never encountered before, and I would just like some direction in the future from Solicitor on this regard, specifically our Chapter 46 personnel, and I'll just quote from it. It's Section 46.6, Recruitment, Appointment, and Promotion. Anti-nepotism, no employee shall be involved in any way in an appointment, hiring, promotion, or supervisory decision, review, discipline, recommendation, selection, or manner of influence concerning a close relative as defined in the Code of Conduct, parents, spouse, children, natural or adopted, and siblings of the whole or half-blood. This was revised and approved by the Commission July 21st, 2023. So this regarding this, how to interpret it, we are elected individuals up here. However, we do receive a W-2, so I think that we possibly are considered an employee. So how this relates back to that situation. Again, today, Mrs. Good, Commissioner Good was not here. She may have recused herself in the vote, which would be appropriate to this, but I just think for in the future, we need to explore this a little bit more.
And again, you're not asking for an answer now.
No, 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 at some
Giving
point in the future.
heads up for,
This would be another year away for an election. So again, just for preparing for the future, this is something that has occurred, that has never occurred before. So just that may occur again in the future, so we would have a standard to measure it by.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. With that, we'll move on to the last bit of new business. This is presentation by Nicholas Walls of Wallace, Montgomery on the draft mixed-use task force tenets. Nick, are we going to turn?
Am I on?
There you go.
Can you hear me? All right, excellent. Thank you, Commissioners. For those who haven't met me, I'm Nick Walls with Wallace, Montgomery. I've been assisting the city with plan reviews and general zoning compliance matters for almost 3 years now, I believe. It's been a pleasure, but currently I've been assisting with facilitating the mixed-use task force, which has been essentially charged with developing big picture goals as well as very specific zoning regulations to help address mixed-use proposals. So as soon as I can, yeah, all right. Very good. Okay, so what are we supposed to be doing with this task force? Essentially, our charge is to, as I said, develop these regulations that specifically encourage, permit, and regulate new development, redevelopment within the commercial districts where those proposals include more than just one type of use, be it residential, commercial, institutional, whatever is permitted under the underlying zoning district. We're going to seek to provide clarity and specificity within the code to give a more streamlined and clear approach, not only for the planning commissioners, the building and licensing staff, but also for the property owners and developers. So everybody's on the same page, everybody understands what they need to provide and what they need to address, and we can move forward quickly and efficiently. Also, one of the other goals is to address some of the targets that were identified within the most recent comprehensive development plan for the city. Chiefly among those were the identification of the need for additional housing options for the city. So that ranges from workforce to housing, affordable housing. There are various different distinctions of these different classes of housing types. And one of the goals of the committee is to find a way to use the zoning regulations to give developers greater flexibility and economic incentive in the composition of what they're proposing. So why are we doing this? Well, the city's pretty darn built out for the most part, but a lot of that is built with aging or already old stock. You know, there's a lot that structurally perhaps could use some work, but also there's a lot of opportunity that developers and property owners are seeing to expand the existing structures, put up things that are a bit taller, that perhaps go closer to the lot lines, and really maximize the use of these parcels for economic return. And so you're going to see, as we have over the past 3, 4, or 5 years at the Planning Commission, more of the mixed-use type of proposals come in. And so we need to make sure that we're giving them the flexibility to improve the city, but at the same time protecting the city aesthetically and the infrastructure, and making sure that the overall community's concerns are addressed through these regulations. At the same time, we want to make sure that to the degree we can within our constraints, we're providing incentives for additional housing stock to be included that can be afforded by a lot of the residents and employees who work in our community. So what are we trying to accomplish here? Well, the text you see here really came from the Comprehensive Development Plan from 2020, so I've sort of copy-pasted that. I already talked over much of this, but we really want to nail the housing choice to the degree that we can within Chapter 270. We want to make sure that we maintain the aesthetic and street feel of the city. We don't want to create a situation where you don't feel comfortable walking down certain streets because of the encroachment of larger buildings closer towards the sidewalks and lot lines. So we need to make sure that we have regulations that protect the general community and their priorities and concerns, as well as doing what we can to encourage the inclusion of additional housing. We're also looking to include elements that address green design, and that's a big term, but it could include things like provisions for green roofs, for solar inclusion, to site design using low-impact development techniques, and advanced stormwater management. So really the focus of the task force here is to look at just Chapter 270. We're fairly limited in our purview. And while the current code does permit mixed use, it doesn't really specify all of the standard zoning constraints that must be complied with for these proposals. So we want to get that specificity in there and make sure that everybody is comfortable with how we are addressing those concerns. And again, looking at ways to incentivize different things. And it's important to note too that the area of the city that we are looking at is only those existing commercially zoned districts. We're not looking at any residential or other zoned areas. Yeah, you get my meaning. So what are we actually looking at here? So we initially, working with the task force and staff, identified 11 primary focal areas. And as you can see, these range from the parking standards to height restrictions, lot coverage, loading docks, all of the various elements that pertain to these structures and that are also regulated in the commercial districts, residential, et cetera. Well, I don't think you have loading docks in a residential, but you understand what I mean. We're trying to make sure that we're comprehensive and have turned over every stone to make sure that we are maximizing the potential for incentivization as well as logical, common sense regulation. So just a little bit more detail on these. So within the parking standards topic, we are going to look at the specific number of parking spaces that are required for the intensity of use, as well as not just the intensity, but the type of use. Is it a large-scale hotel? Is it commercial? And are the required number of spaces sufficient? Is there a way that we can perhaps reduce some of those numbers in order to provide a benefit to the developers and owners to include the housing options that we mentioned earlier, or other green elements, or other targets identified by the CDP? This could also include looking at the location of the parking areas, the space requirements of each. So are we talking about 6 by 18, 9 by 18? The length and width of these spaces, in addition to the circulation widths, are the ways we can tinker with some of these existing standards to provide benefits that change the economic calculus for developers and allow them to include these other housing types or other development techniques. And again, looking at shared parking facilities, considering a lot of the discussions recently we've had on parking in the community, it's something we should at least look at and consider. Is there a way to help alleviate strain somewhere? That's going to be one thing that we look into. Building height was another topic that we identified as a overarching goal to examine. I want to be crystal clear. We're going to, based on the task force members' directions, we're going to maintain the existing height limitations. 42 foot is your standard max elevation of the ceiling, or not the ceiling, the roof line rather. However, there are about 8 foot between 42 and 50 feet where there are mechanical elements permitted, also some other appurtenances. But is that 8 feet also an opportunity to consider inclusion of solar panels, green roofs, things of that nature? Again, we'll be discussing all of these potential options with the task force members, Planning Commission, and yourselves as well, and the public as well. Critically, we're going to be maintaining that second floor vertical step back that helps to contribute to the street feel and the aesthetic, the existing aesthetic of the commercial districts and Rehoboth as a whole. And I mentioned the last point here was looking at the half-story top floor regulations and seeing if we can get creative and maximize the opportunity to house people while maintaining the aesthetics and the final product, the view of what comes out of that as a building. Residential unit sizes. Looking at the minimum average size requirements for multifamily units and seeing if those can be adjusted again to allow more units or to further restrict them. I'm not going to say one way or the other what the task force's determinations will be. That's for them to say and me to help relay, but I'm not here to influence beyond providing examples and an expertise, if you will. Looking at the composition, the arrangement, the sizing of these multifamily units, is there a desire at all to consider dormitory-like facilities that have shared, or dormitory-like residential units that have shared facilities like a kitchen or bathroom? It's one way that we can increase the number of people housed, increase the economic return or incentivize the economics for builders while maintaining and minimizing impacts aesthetically on the communities. And then looking at other of the lot size regulations to tweak them, but with a focus on the aesthetic value of the product itself. And this gets into almost a form-based code approach where you're not as prescriptive in the very detailed elements so much as you are concerned with what is it going to look like? What's the final product going to be? And is that consistent with the existing architectural design guidelines, with the character of the community, and with the community's desire and preferences? Lot coverage, the general mood, I believe, was that the 100% of net lot area will be retained for commercial uses, but we're going to specify beyond those commercial uses and beyond the first floor, what about the second, third, fourth in residential, commercial mixes? So it's a combination of making sure that we have reasonable constraints that protect the community's value, aesthetic, and the adjacent property owners' use and enjoyment of their properties. Very similarly with setbacks as well, making sure that those all make sense for everybody. Perhaps one of the areas that we have the greatest ability to create incentives for workforce housing, sustainable building practices, et cetera, is through floor area ratio. It's not the easiest thing to explain and describe, but essentially it gets to the bulk and visual heft of what the proposal is. And recently we've seen a lot of mixed-use type projects come through and receive variances to go from a 2.0 to a 3.0 FAR. Is that something that we should address within these regulations? Well, that's a topic that we're going to be exploring as well. It definitely provides a economic benefit to the property owners and developers to have a greater FAR. It means that you're getting more space in that structure. Also looking at the existing regulation where areas with ceiling heights, internal ceiling heights greater than 12 feet are counted twice. Is that something that should remain? Should we consider revising it? That will be presented as well. Storage of refuse and the screening on site for the trash. While it is currently permitted to have shared trash facilities, we want to be a little bit more clear on those regulations and at the same time prevent trash from becoming a eyesore and an issue with blowing debris all over the place. So let's find reasonable solutions that allow adjacent property owners to share resources, make better use of space, and hopefully get some benefit for the community as well. Loading docks, we want to get a little bit more detailed about how we calculate the requirements for the number and type and location of loading docks within mixed-use properties. Currently, there's a bit of there's a lack of clarity in some regards as to whether you need to count all of the different uses cumulatively, individually, and how that pertains to the overall structure and the location and sizing of those loading docks. So again, it's a chance to make sure that we, within the mixed-use district, have clear standards that everybody is on the same page with and that developers know, so that when the plans come before us, there's not a lot of back and forth, and hopefully we can make a more efficient process by doing so, which saves everybody time and their side a lot of money as well. Okay, so the top part here, as I mentioned, we need to make sure that we have all of the existing regulations that commercial, residential, other uses have in place. So very straightforward, it's going to be, okay, we have building height restrictions here in commercial, let's make sure we have them in mixed use. We have setbacks, let's have them in mixed use. It's just ensuring that we don't have gaps anywhere within the new portion of the code. And then once again, where can we incorporate incentives and bonuses, if you will, for the inclusion of green elements, perhaps related to stormwater management, site design, utilization of construction materials and methods. To the degree that it is covered within the zoning, Chapter 270 with the zoning code, we will examine it and identify what the task force's preferences are and move forward in that direction. Lastly here, we need to update the list of permitted uses within the mixed-use district. And if you look at the existing lists in the commercial districts, there's some that are a little bit dated, like the phone company connection sites, and other such uses that may not ever come before us again. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we include some of the more recent structures that we see now: salons, daycares, spas, urgent care centers, a wide variety of uses that aren't explicitly mentioned for or against in any district currently, but should be considered whether to include it or not include it. And one of the topics that came up was, is there a way that we can use categorization of these uses as opposed to trying to be incredibly specific and detailed for each use? And this sort of gets into the NAICS codes, the NAICS, I believe it was, one of the members forward a reference, and I might be recalling that specific reference, but the concept is, instead of saying daycares are good, spas are good, is there a overarching beauty category that we could use that provides greater flexibility, but at the same time gives us opportunity, the Planning Commission, your commission here as well, to constrain those uses where it shouldn't be applied. And then looking at Tier 1 commercial districts to consider things such as including higher density residential uses within that district. That was something that has been mentioned, And we're going to follow that through and see what we can explore and find out. So that's essentially what I have for you. Are there any questions I can answer? Please, just shoot them out.
Thank you, Nick. I wanted to clarify a couple things first. Are these the tenets exactly as they came out of the mixed-use task force?
This is a summary of them. I've provided also a separate document that is a much more precise reading of everything that was circulated to the task force members as well as the Planning Commission, and it was provided to Anna as well, I believe, hopefully.
I guess that's where I was headed. I know you've also forwarded this to the Planning Commission. Have they given you feedback?
We have received some feedback both from the task force members and the Planning Commission, verbally from the Planning Commission,
But it's not incorporated in this yet.
Yes, it has been. It has been. And there were no significant deviations from anything that's been presented, both in this PowerPoint and in the documentation, at least so far as I have caught. I won't claim to be perfect, of course.
Okay, so what is your goal to get from us today? Are you going to solicit
Yes.
comments from us as well? And
Absolutely. So there are currently discussions on the timing of the mixed-use process and how that correlates with the overarching rewrite of the code and how to get those two components to ensure their consistency. So I don't want to ask something of you directly without giving you a time frame. However, our goal is to get your feedback insofar as, are there any items that we've identified where you're like, whoa, no, this is not going to work. This is a fool's errand. Don't go down that road. So is there an objection to a concept? We recognize that ultimately the regulations that are developed have to come before all the boards for their approval and incorporation. So if there are issues you see now, we'd like to know so that we don't take time that could be better devoted elsewhere. Does that make any sense?
yeah, and what I'm trying to think of is what is our best process?
Certainly.
And I guess I'm thinking our best process would be that if you want feedback collectively, then we should put this on a future agenda.
However you would like to proceed, I will leave that to your determination, whether it's as a whole from the Board of Commissioners or if individuals would prefer to respond, that's up to you all. I will take it however you'd like.
I guess I'm tending toward collective so that we can all hear each other's thoughts instead of you getting 9 different versions of something.
Understood, yeah. And I'll note that one of the ways that I've sort of tried to organize and approach the task force is it's very difficult to find absolute agreement on everything. And so the sort of framework that I like to use in these type of processes is not so much consensus, which implies everybody's absolutely on board with every single piece and agrees, but rather consent, which is, do you have a fundamental issue with allowing any of these proposals to proceed forward with the knowledge that it's worth a shot, it addresses the underlying goals, it's reasonable and logical, and has a chance to address the target. But if there's something that you object to strenuously, that's a different story. And that's when we would ask that you provide that type of comment. But if it's something that we think is worth a shot, perhaps we give it a try, and knowing that in the future it can be amended to remove the offending portion, whether more restrictive or less restrictive. So it's always subject to future change, I guess. And a lot of times within the planning world, you don't know how something is going to ultimately flesh out in reality, because every situation is different, every location has different goals, developers, property owners, all of the different contexts. So I hope that makes any sense to everybody, but it's a little bit different framework to use rhetorically.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Thayer?
Yeah, thank you. So a couple of questions. So I want to make sure I understand what the path forward is for mixed, I guess the task force in general, right? Mixed use, particularly considering some of the other code revisions. Well, not just some of the other, but really major code revisions we're looking at doing. That's one. Two, you mentioned a more detailed document was sent to the task force and the planning commission. Really would have liked to have gotten that today. So I'm assuming we're going to get that.
Yeah.
And is there a reason why we didn't get it today?
Evan, I think we had attached it with the PowerPoint initially. Okay. It's a matter of a distribution rather. It's with the city. It just needs to be provided to you, I believe.
Okay,
So
and before you answer the first question, so back on the slide where there is the overview of tenants, and there looks like there's 8, 9, 10, 11 boxes. Are these all the tenants? You used the term summarization, so I'm curious if there are 11 tenants or maybe there's 15 and you aggregated into 11 for the purposes of presentation.
There are 11.
Okay, all right.
The summarization was the bullets underneath and condensing them for presentation and discussion purposes within the time provided.
Yeah, and just back to the first one, I've multiple concerns, but I think my biggest concern would be understanding where this is going. So let's kind of start there, then I'm sure I'll have some other questions.
Would you like me to explain what the parking?
No, I think that's probably for the city manager.
Okay, thank you. I think you might need to be a bit more clear in the question program. I'm sorry.
I think I was pretty clear, but I'll restate it. So, given the bigger or kind of the all-encompassing code, right? We've been, we budgeted for. We're having ongoing discussions of. I'm trying to understand what is the next step for this task force, and the objective is this task force.
Sure. So ultimately, I believe we just want to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts. So if we are not focusing on the mixed use portion with any of the other work that we're doing, we could complete this task that we've embarked on with Wallace Montgomery, or we could, if there are overlap, we could figure out how to work together to get a path forward so that we're not duplicating work.
And that sort of consistency has come up from a number of the
So how do we come to that decision? I mean, what's the process? What are the steps to come to a determination that there is either is or is not overlap?
Sure.
Because kind of in my vision, I think there's overlap. As I've kind of said, I want, to me, there's a longer term process here, which is we've got to update the code. I'd like to get that done, really within the next 2 to 3 years, which then sets us up for the update of the next, comprehensive development plan, right? This is all about land use management. It all ultimately, not only fits together, but one has to support the other.
Right. So you saw in our last meeting that we had the Gantt chart that Mr. Shinko presented. Obviously, the number of years it will take for staff to do it is sort of untenable to do a 3-year time frame. So today we had an initial conversation with a code person who could essentially be an extension of staff and have their employees help us to further along the code rewrites. We're also going to reach out to some others that may be able to assist us, including Wallace Montgomery, and then determine what the actual timeline and immediacy of the different items are and relook at that. So right now it's kind of up in the air, but once we have maybe 2 more weeks of planning, we should have a clear path.
So when you say 2 more weeks, like, July 4th or July 9th or something like that, it'd be my preference to get that clearer path from you before we dive into this. I think, one, we're getting into the summer months, so, people are busy for a variety of different reasons, but I think I'd like to have that clear path before we start spending a lot of time on the tenants and giving feedback on the tenants.
Okay.
Any other questions for Nick?
I have one question.
Commissioner Markert?
Yeah. I was on the planning commission for a while, and it's been a while, but obviously, if you go to this overview of tenants, and we have certain restrictions obviously within the commercial realm. We kind of divide things at the present. It's commercial, residential, and we have sort of limits with regard to what we always used to refer to as light and safety, and like making something habitable, and obviously a commercial, other than it being commercial, like a hotel or something like that, you're not so concerned. You're concerned about maximizing space for whatever it is you're doing and all that kind of stuff. But the thing that, as I kind of like, I'm trying to look at this maybe from a slightly farther distance, is how is this going to change things? And I certainly expect and recognize that it's important that we have the capacity to make those kind of decisions and change things. But I'm wondering, I guess what I want to, not so much want to see, but I want to be part of the discussion and part of the development of this thing is sort of limits to how and I think it all sort of centers on density, and human density in terms of like whatever operation or everything that we're going to do. And I assume that's what urban planners do, There you go,
Yes.
So
Yep.
I'm just trying to, somehow I assume there are sort of rules of thumb, and I'm not saying they were just developed out of thin air. I mean, it's sort of somewhat quantifiable that you can only stuff X number of people into a room and all this other kind of stuff. So do you not start from that? I guess that's what I'm kind of getting at is like, if we're going to sort of be able to sort of create different kind of envelopes of space that have certain functions and things like that, because we had sort of this discussion at one time when we were getting into this whole business of rental, houses that are available for rent, and like how many people can be there and all this other kind of stuff. And here we're sort of hopefully creating a workable solution to this,
Yes.
Okay. And in addition, in the context of another location other than a residential neighborhood, potentially, So. Anyway, I know I'm blathering here, but it's just that how in this process, and I'm asking for a simple answer to, I think, a long-winded, complex question, is how do you get to what the limits are? And I don't know if you can address that or not.
So I'm not one for brevity myself.
Yeah,
I
right.
apologize.
Okay, well, how about it?
But we have to keep in mind that the status quo will allow a lot greater density than you currently have of not only commercial but residential use as well. And I would point to some of the large hotel mixed-use projects that we've gotten in here lately as an example of existing commercially zoned parcels where you are taking an existing maybe 1 or 2 story structure and significantly expanding it beyond what we've been accustomed to seeing, if you will. And if left as is, that pattern will likely continue within the commercial area because it is such a potential moneymaker for developers and property owners. So in that context, by providing reasonable constraints on the number of residential units, what the minimum unit size is based on the parcel size or the structural size or whatever the determination ultimately is, we provide some definite cap or minimum on that, depending on how the actual regulation is drafted. I know that might have been a little confusing. I really do mean a cap, not so much a minimum. I'm thinking of the minimum unit size and threw that in accidentally. But it results in a cap in the number of residences and the individual units within those structures. Now, we're not going to be touching building code, which is your primary driver of health and safety of occupants and the community. So the building code has your egress requirements, your fire restrictions,
Right.
all of that
Yeah.
manner of analysis, and a lot of your accessibility requirements as well for disabled persons. So I believe that the building code portion will continue to ensure the health and safety of these future structures. But we want to look at, as you said, the zoning-related density-like provisions that really do have a tremendous impact on the communities. Absolutely, I agree. And so I can't be more specific in the how, because that's up to the task force to initiate the determination as to what it is they want to do first. And then I'll take that information and draft specific regulation, present that to them, have an iterative process. You guys will certainly be involved in review of that. And I absolutely want your feedback, everybody's feedback, to create something that is reflective of the community's desire.
Okay.
I hope that somewhat answered it.
Well, I mean, but then, we get to hash at it,
Yes,
or hash it out.
absolutely.
And then we got to sort of represent it, not gonna say re-present it, but like get the public involved.
Absolutely.
Which, sometimes requires a hammer, to be able to get people involved, to focus on these things and how they feel about it.
Completely
Okay.
agree. And if I may, one thing that I would like to note is that I would encourage the city to consider other means to address the goals of incentivizing affordable housing, workforce housing, beyond the limitations of this task force and Chapter 270. I think it's only through a unified government whole approach that you're really going to see significant change in that area. So it's just something I want to pass along. That's also come up through the task force discussions as well as the Planning Commission discussions too. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to go to the public, but Patrick, you want to go ahead?
Just curious, thank you for the presentation, Nick. A lot of work goes into this. I guess an area that I think still needs to be addressed in the sense of we talk about a variety of housing stock. And I think what, it comes down to the developer and incentives for the developer, but it comes down to return on investment.
100%.
100%. And, this is a seasonal town, so you've got 90 or a little more days to realize that return on investment in the high season. But that, to me, is where the workforce housing aspect of this really enters. And that's lifeguards, summer beach, summer officers, police officers, and the hospitality industry.
Yep.
And, for someone to invest X number of millions of dollars for retail and housing above, that's not a easy match.
It's a complicated model.
It is.
For sure.
And I'm just, are we working towards something that will not result in the outcome we intend in that regard of building, I'll say a luxury apartment above a retail store that, any of those three categories that I just mentioned couldn't possibly afford. So it really, what is that intent? And I don't mean to answer that now, but those are just,
certainly.
what is that housing stock and affordable housing, I think, has a different meaning when it comes to seasonal opportunities here in Rehoboth as it does in the county or in the state.
Completely agreed. It's a very difficult goal to address when you have high-value real estate like the city does. That is the fundamental issue. How do you square those two semi-opposing elements? And that's sort of why I indicate that zoning alone won't fully resolve the issue. I made a statement at the Planning Commission presentation to the effect that there wasn't necessarily I didn't get the sense that the task force wanted to create required percentages of residential units must be affordable workforce-type housing. That wasn't the direction we wanted to go. We want to provide a baseline of regulation that everybody has to comply with, but then provide bonuses, perhaps like in a far increase from 2.0 to whatever it may be, that if used for, if the developer provides, I'm making up numbers here, 10% of the total units as workforce affordable housing, then they get a 10% bonus in FAR. Again, making things up here, but that is the concept. It's not requirements. They are bonuses that are intended to nibble at that economic calculation that provides a sufficient return on their investment to make it make sense for them to be included. That's the goal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. Any members of the public like to address this topic, public mixed-use task force tenants? Yes. We want to make sure. State your name and
My
relationship
name's
to the
Collins
city.
Roth. I live at 501 South Boardwalk and have been looking into potentially doing some mixed-use developing in town, so this is sort of topical. Two just personal points and then one bigger point. First is I get very nervous when I hear aesthetics included in anything like this. One man's ugly is another man's pretty, and we're replacing a lot of open parking lots in this town, a lot of cinder block buildings, and let's not hold up replacing these over arguments about aesthetics. Second, on parking, I hope that there's a focus. One of the great things about mixed use is that you reduce the demand for parking in addition to just manage the supply. So I hope that this includes measures and steps to look at how can we reduce the demand for parking, i.e. getting people out of cars, onto bikes, right, walking downstairs to be able to consume and buy things. So I hope that those are considered in there. And then the final point is just the general one as somebody who's looked at developing here in this town. The town doesn't have a great reputation for being able to get stuff done. Real estate is very expensive to buy. There's several open for sale plots in town that are perfect for mixed use. When I hear all this, it scares the hell out of me. To have this hanging over you, that you might buy a piece of land only to have all the rules change, is going to stop people from developing anything. And so I think it's an important point that if this happens, I think, Commissioner, this was your point, there needs to be a timeline of when this is going to get settled, because you're going to push people away and you're going to get people who don't look at putting their capital, their time, their development into properties in this town because there's this shadow of what might change and the uncertainty of what might change. So,
Your name and address again.
Collins Roth,
Collins Roth.
501 Boardwalk South.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Commissioner, can I respond
yeah.
quickly?
Sure.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for bringing this to us. I'd love to hear residents and the community's input on these things. Truly do. So right now, there is a lack of clarity and process and detail in the code when it comes to mixed-use proposals. Yeah. And so I would suggest that having more specifics, not necessarily greater regulations or anything more restrictive than what is currently there, but more clarity in the details of what you got to do in your plans and how you got to construct and design things. It will allow the planning department, building and licensing to perform faster, more efficient reviews, to have less iterative processes back and forth between the developers and the staff here as well. I'm not to speak for anybody, but the Planning Commission, Board of Commissioners as well. Hopefully we can also reduce, minimize, mitigate the need for variance requests because of some of the gaps, if you will, in some of the regulations. So clarity and process being clear, clarity and process, standards and process being clear will hopefully result in more efficiency on both sides, for the review and permitting and to the developers as well. I hope that, and I'm sorry, one other point about the aesthetics. We aren't looking truly at a form-based code approach to everything. However, we're going to try and pick the relevant pieces from that type of approach, mostly perhaps for the C3 areas where you have that blend of more residential and adjacency to true residential uses. so that we don't have mismatches in the view, if you will. And the city of Rehoboth has done a great job with their existing architectural design guidelines for the residential areas. And we'd be looking to have some form of something like that carried over to these proposals. So I don't think anybody here, and again, I'm not trying to speak for people, but I don't think we want to be overly restrictive so much as provide guidance and clarity and hope to maintain the appearances. That's really the goal.
Thank you, Dick. Francis? And I apologize, but this is not a conversation. This is just
My apologies.
public comment, yeah.
My apologies.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you. That's good. Mr. Walls, yeah, I just wanted to ask.
Francis,
Oh,
who are you?
Francis Kelleher, 318 Stokely Street. So I live in the residential district. Of course, I also have similar always concerns that Commissioner Markert kind of brought up about density, and Commissioner Gossett is always good at issues with the FAR, changing the FAR. When you mention that gets people a little nervous. But what I really want to link is parking standards to the FAR and ask you, one of my issues in the residential district when there has been redevelopment, i.e. tear downs, where on the frontage of a home, there had been 4 good parking spaces because maybe the previous older home had a single width driveway and going in. But with tear downs, to me, a lot of street parking has been decimated because they instead of building a single lane, they build 2 lanes to get the required parking spaces. And I'm worried about tearing down in the commercial district. So maybe I'll just say this. Have you considered the idea of trying in the scope of all of your work to maintain street parking at least as it is, not to decrease street parking? And then also, in fact, I would say beyond that is maybe increase it because we do have a lot of empty parking lots like on Wilmington Avenue. And right now, pretty much there's open entrance to the whole like Grotto's Pizza's parking lot. So to me, what would be an improvement in the city is as we're building and rebuilding, that we try to make sure we're having entrances that are as narrow as possible, maybe going into a parking area and not taking away street parking.
And again, this isn't a conversation. This is to receive comment. Francis, the best time for a conversation, if you want it, would be the next time we have a task force meeting.
May I just,
Yeah, I just was hoping to raise this issue that they would consider it because they didn't bring it up
Sure.
specifically. The idea of in their parking standards having a goal to maintain street parking.
Thank you. Anybody else?
may I make just
If
a
not-
general comment that the task force meetings are public meetings,
Correct.
and so I would encourage anybody who is
Do you have a
interested.
next meeting scheduled at all?
There are overarching scheduling discussions that pertain to the communication and consistency between the different code rewrites that
Right.
we don't currently have a schedule yet for those.
Okay. Are there any last comments by the commissioners up here? If not, Nick, we thank you for being here,
Thank you very much.
and I appreciate that. With that, we'll move on to closing up here. Commissioner announcements, comments, anything? If not, I'll move on to review future meeting dates.
Oh,
and-
Mayor, I'm sorry, could I? Just a quick comment. I
Gotta be quick.
apologize, but it's
Gotta be quick.
important. Might be a little longer. I wanted to thank Chief Banks, his entire team, because I know they were involved, for supporting and participating in the Special Olympics torch run. Not only for supporting it here at the bandstand, I know I'm going to get her name wrong, so I apologize. I believe it was Sarah Rowley, who got the torch here at the bandstand, ran with a few of our athletes out of town, but I know she was not the only runner. I know there were other individuals on your staff that also participated. So again, thank you for doing that. And it was great to see Lieutenant Sullivan, one of your cadets, Ethan, I don't know the names of the other cadets, at the Bob Carpenter Center for opening ceremony. So again, thank you for doing that.
Thank you. And that wasn't just this year. They've done this for a decade or more, correct? Very good. Forever, yes. Thank you. I'll review future meeting dates. Our next meeting on our calendar is Monday, July 7th. It's a 9 a.m. workshop meeting. We'll go to citizen comment. These are for opportunity to comment for things off the agenda. Does anybody have anything? Seeing no hands, we will then adjourn this meeting.